So the particular aspect that I'm speaking on is overcoming the barriers to implementing newborn screening for sickle cell disease in Africa. So sickle cell disease is one of the commonest genetic disorders of blood, and 80% of those affected by this disease live in sub-Saharan Africa, where the disease has the highest burden. Although there has been more than 30 years of evidence that identifying children born with this disease early in life and implementing simple measures like penicillin prophylaxis, vaccination, care for the febrile child, educating mothers, can reduce mortality by over 90%. So although this has been done in the richer parts of the world, where this intervention is needed most in sub-Saharan Africa, very little is being done. And what I'm going to discuss is what are the barriers and how can we overcome them. So it's a very important subject because never will you have so little needing done to prevent so many deaths in children. When children are born with sickle cell disease, there's nothing about them that shows that they have the disease. They are born normal, mainly because the type of blood they have is fetal blood, which we all have in the womb. That then switches to adult blood, which is where the problem, the mutation is. So children don't manifest the disease until a few months of life, probably after 6 months of life. And the idea is that actually in most parts of sub-Saharan Africa, parents wouldn't know that the child has the disease. The child might die of malaria or pneumonia without the diagnosis of sickle cell being made. So the problem in Africa is that because these children die mostly undetected and undiagnosed, policymakers are not even aware of the problem. So the thing to do is to test the child either soon after birth or at least by the time they go for their first immunization, so that you can detect them when they are well and provide the interventions that will prevent early mortality. Evidence shows that if you don't do that, nearly 50 to 80% of them will die before the age of 5. And we think in sub-Saharan Africa, the reason why they haven't been able to reduce under 5 mortality to reach the target set by the United Nations, the Millennium Development Goals, is that there's a subsection of them, and that is 2%. So 1 out of every 50 babies born in sub-Saharan Africa has the disease. So if you don't detect this, those are the ones who are going to die very fast. And no matter what you do, unless you can detect them before they die, you will not be able to save their lives. So the idea is that everywhere children are born, that this test is done to detect them so that these simple interventions can be implemented to prevent early mortality. And not only that, the disease can also cause complications because it's a lifelong disease. It's the commonest cause of stroke in children. So you can imagine a child age 18 months or 2 years having stroke, damage to the brain, and actually stifling the development of this child. And the burden on families, the burden on society, the cost of managing a child with stroke in those communities is enormous. So the message we're trying to send across to these governments in sub-Saharan Africa, that this is a cost-efficient intervention, that it will save lives, it will save healthcare resource because you are preventing complications and mortality as well.